So obviously we didn't play Twinkle Twinkle the same way every time. I actually used boom a chukka and boom chukka and boom a chukka and so on and so forth. So what happens when I do that? All right. So you still play the same way, right? Boom chukka boom. Boom chukka booma chukka boom chukka booma chukka, right? And I can actually, once I get really good at that, I can actually shift where the notes are. So I can shift them in the beat pattern to give it swing, right? Because it doesn't have to be always sung twinkle, twinkle, little star. That's kind of like the simplest version of the tune, right? But what if I did it like this? Right? Now, you'll notice I cheated just a tiny bit, and sometimes you saw me using my pointer finger with that, you know, to get those back, to get the uhs, the chuck uhs, right? And sometimes you saw me using my middle finger. And that's just because there were so many of them that you kind of have to figure out a way to get them all in there and not disrupt the pattern of the hand. That's the main thing, is gravity drives the music. If you've got that gravity thing going, and you've got that boom chuck going straight like that, you'll have the swing that it takes to do that. And of course, you know, that works on everything. So that was kind of the swingy version of Twinkle Twinkle, but in fact I could play a fiddle tune version of Twinkle Twinkle too, and it might go something like this. Or something like that. You get the idea. I don't play that one very often, but that's something how it would go. All right. So you'll notice that so far I've only played the melody like that. So the question is, of course, doesn't that get a little boring after a while? And what happened to the nice chords that go underneath it? So let's talk about that next. All right. So this section is actually for those of you who are more advanced players and have kind of worked a little bit on the pinch maybe, or maybe you've worked a lot on it, or maybe you have another style that you play altogether and you kind of want to figure out how to incorporate what you're doing with what I'm showing you here with the rhythm thing, right? So, you know, so we started off boom chucking, right? And now we were playing Twinkle Twinkle, and, you know, I could play it. Or even... right? So that's all basically just with two fingers, and occasionally I throw a third one in there just to kind of get an extra note if I need it, right? But what about the rest of it, right? So how do you get the rest of the chords and stuff in there so that it sounds like something interesting, right? Right? So I'm doing the boom chuck, boom chuck, boom a chucka, boom chuck, boom a chucka, boom chucka, boom chucka, whatever it is, whatever pattern is I choose, right? So you'll notice, even though you see me pinching in between, right? So my hand is actually doing this kind of grabbing thing, right? So even though you see me doing those pinches, what you also see is that the hand never stops doing this, right? So the rhythm is always behind whatever I'm doing, and that's the key. So if I need to grab on a boom or on a chuck, right? So So I might want to grab on those first two, right? So I'm just realizing that I actually grab mostly on chucks and not on booms, right? So the boom is always with my thumb, or almost always with my thumb, and the chuck is it can often be a grab if it needs to be. So it's a little pinch, or maybe a big pinch. I'm actually using pretty wide pinches, but you can use any size pinches you want to make the sound you want. So, let's just, for the moment, so if I'm doing boom, chuck, chuck, for a waltz, right? Boom, chuck, chuck. Boom, chuck, chuck, right? Boom, chuck, chuck, 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 boom, chuck, chuck. Right, so that's just a little bit of south wind in 3, works exactly the same way. And I grab wherever I need to make some kind of a melody or some kind of a harmony, right? That's all I'm aiming at, is just to kind of use the grab if I need it to make the harmony. So, but the thumb is always making that harmony. The thumb is always in the bass line there, right? So that's the idea behind it. If I were playing, as I was a little bit ago, I was playing the, Down the Way Where the Nights Are Gay, whatever the name of that song is. When I was playing that, it would go something like this. Something along those lines. You get the idea. So, so I'm just kind of throwing in those pinches where I need them, and they make, really beautiful, simple sorts of harmonies.